So this lab is going to be very easy to do. It should be pretty short. What we're going to look at today is a little bit of adding data into our attributes table. So we looked at how to create a shapefile, and what I've got here is a file that's already created minus a few things in here that we want to manipulate. So I created some landings here. You can see these little yellow dots here are all potential sites that they would have been yarding from, or that they would have been collecting trees at. And if you zoom in, you can see why I picked them. You can see that they're actually landings at the end of these roads. So if we open up the attributes table for landings here, you can see that all that's here is just the fact that it's a point file and its unique identifier. So what we want to do is we want to generate some UTMs for these. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in two fields. We're going to add in a UTM East and a UTM North field into here. So we'll open up our attributes table, all right? And we will go up and we'll go to add fields. And we want to call this UTM East. And we're going to make it a long integer field. So change that to long integer field. And we can leave the precision alone for right now. So we say OK. And then we want to go up here and we want to say add field. And we want to call this one UTM North. So UTM underscore N. And we want to make this a long integer field as well. And say OK. All right. So now that we've got this done, we'll go over here and we'll click on the top of here. We'll right click and we'll go down to calculate geometry. And it says we can do this in an edit session, but we don't have to. So we just say yes. All right. And so it automatically recognizes that a UTM East is actually calculating for your coordinates of your point, just because it's a point, right? So it doesn't have an area, it doesn't have a perimeter. The geometry you're going to be able to calculate for this is going to be its coordinates. So you have your X coordinate of a point, and since we're doing UTM East, that's on your X field. UTM North is on your Y field. So X coordinate of the field, it's got the correct coordinate system because it's pulling it in, and it's going to do it in meters. So we say OK. And we say yes. And there we go. There's our UTM East. Then we can go over here. We can right click. We can say calculate geometry. And it says the same things. Do we want to do this outside of it? And this is still saying X coordinate for the point. So we want to go over here and we want to change that to Y coordinate for the point. Remember, Y is for up and down, UTM North. And then we say OK. We say yes. There we go. There's our UTM North. So UTM East, UTM North. So that's simple as that. That's how we calculate our UTMs for the points that we created. All right, so I want to do this a little bit different. We're going to do clear cuts. We're going to do the same thing that we did for our landings, except for our clear cuts, we're going to calculate our area and our perimeter. So we want to open up our attributes table. We want to create two fields. So we'll add a field. We'll call this area. And we'll change it to a long integer. Say OK. And that's different from the direction. Say I was having problems with the short integer working for area. And then we will add a field. We'll call this one perimeter. And we'll change that to a long integer as well. We'll say OK. And then what we want to do is go up to editor and say start editing. And then we say OK. And we say continue. You right click here just like before, go down to calculate geometry, choose area. Your coordinates are fine. You can leave it in square meters and say OK. And then we'll go over here. We'll calculate our geometry. We'll change this to perimeter. leave it in meters. That's fine. We say OK. And click off here and go to editor. We can say stop editing. We'll say save edits. All right, now you can see if you right click over here and you click on the top, you can go down to statistics. It's going to give you what your minimum, your maximum, your sum, and your average is for each one of these clear cuts for the area. And you can do the same thing if you go over here to perimeter, right click, and go to statistics. It'll give you the same idea here. So you have 10 of them. It shows you what your sum is, shows you what your average is, your minimum and your maximum. You may notice that there's convenient similarity between sum and mean, and that's because your total count is 10. So when you do your average, you do your sum divided by your number, and so you're just dividing by 10. So that gives you that value there with your standard deviations. So now you have those values for your min max of your perimeter of in your area, and your mean and your standard deviation. I'd like you to click on your layout button, and down here you can see I've already made you a map that looks pretty nice. I'd like to add in some text that summarizes those values. So you can either do that by adding in a text box where you manipulate it out, so you can type it all out with just area, mean, max, min, or you can go and you can insert an object. This might take a little bit, and from your objects you can choose an Excel worksheet and say OK. And this will open up a blank Excel worksheet, and you can actually put those values in here and manipulate things by like putting in your border and everything. And when you're done doing that, you'll close this out and you'll notice that you have an Excel worksheet that mirrors that sheet that you just made, that you can then shrink up however you need it to be and however you need it to fit and put it over into here. So there are some things with this that are going to be, a little different from typing it out, maybe a little bit harder to do than typing it out. You can mess around with that a little bit, or you can just put it in as a text box. Completely up to you. Once you're done with that, I'd like you to export this map as a PDF and upload it to the Lancer Lake. Anyway, if you have any questions, as always, give me a shout and I can go over it with you. Thanks. Bye.